a lot of people were pretty let down by Spider-Man 2. The character models weren't great, the pacing was a little bit odd at times, there were many instances of the message shoved into it, but now Insomniac has confirmed Miles is taking over and Peter Parker is no longer the main Spider-Man going forward, which has rightfully infuriated people. I have a few different things that I want to show off, but before we get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, follow me on social media, and consider supporting through Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Now, I wanted to start off with this Gizmodo article because that is where this whole, conversation stems from. They did have a interview with one of the Spider-Man 2 writers, and they were asked, you said earlier you basically knew right away that you wanted playable Venom, which I do think was a very cool addition to the game. I did not think that, that was going to be as cool as it was, but they did a very good job with the Venom. But it says, does that also apply to ending this game with Miles as the main Spider-Man from now on? And then they responded with, it has always felt very natural, and I think we all collectively thought that it would happen. To me, it shows a great deal of evolution from Miles. At the beginning of the game, we see him struggling to figure out what he wants to do with his life, and by the end, we had Miles carrying the burden of saving the city, and also carrying Pete when Pete wasn't strong enough to carry himself at various points. That's what's been so cool about writing a story about two Spider-Men. They're both strong, and one of them can be strong when the other is not. Now, I have live streamed all of the Insomniac Spider-Man game on the channel, and I thought that they were pretty good. The first one was definitely the best by far, great start. The Miles game, it wasn't necessarily that bad. It was just a bit short, it was a bit bland. It just was not the experience I wanted from another title. And then, of course, we got Spider-Man 2, and while they definitely did improve upon a lot, like the boss fights were awesome, even if at times they had a couple too many phases, I thought that the villains were very cool. Unfortunately, I do think that the story lacked, at least in my opinion, and one of the problems was, Miles. I don't think that he was as cool as they could have made him. Like, I really feel like they could have vamped him up and made him Pete's equal, and they really didn't for some reason. They tried to do this underdog story with him where, he was the one who had to step up when Pete couldn't, when he had the Venom suit on, and it just made me dislike him going through the game. Because while he was a friend for Pete, they also did definitely kind of sideline Pete and try to make him look like the bad guy. Not just when he had the Venom suit on, but afterwards, he had to right the wrongs. And they made Miles, by the very end, this big savior. And I just feel like it didn't make a lot of sense. It should have been more of Pete's story, because let's be honest, that is what people want and what people expect. You got away with having the two Spider-Men, it did work really well at times, but then, you sideline Pete, and they're straight up admitting that they, from the beginning, we're planning to do this. We now see that their intent was always to toss Peter to the corner and have Miles, take the mantle, and that just leaves a rotten taste in my mouth. I do not think that they should have done that. What they should have done is they should have finished the trilogy with Peter as the main Spider-Man and then continued Miles' story, because, he's already got his standalone game. Just use that and these other titles as the launch pad to bigger things for him. That would have been great, but instead they're replacing Peter, which in no way is what people want. I can't wait for the next game to come out and the developers say it sold poorly because of racists, because we know that that's going to happen, but it's just not fair to Peter and fans of Peter, and you've sidelined him now, and you're straight up admitting that that was actually your intention from the beginning, and it's like they expected that to go over well. Again, I don't necessarily have a big problem with Miles. They did definitely flesh him out a lot in this, but if you look at the next game, Miles shouldn't have Parker's enemies, and he's going to. He should have his own story and his own villains going after him for their own reasons, but instead, he's just inheriting Peter's. Like, they've been setting up the Green Goblin for the third game, but it makes no sense as to why it would be Miles against him, aside from one's a bad guy and one's a good guy, and that's what they're probably going to end up doing in this. He's going to, of course, have Peter's villains, and I just don't think it's going to turn out that well. Honestly, I do not have any hype or excitement for another game. Spider-Man 2 just was not the title I wanted it to be, and of course, in every part of the story, you had the message. I was not a big fan. It was definitely obvious at a lot of times. And a lot of people are also saying the same thing, that going forward, they don't really have a lot of hype for Spider-Man 3 anyway. They don't even think that they'll necessarily play it in a few years when it launches. And a lot of people are, mimicking what I'm saying, which is, this just is going to be an unfulfilling ending to Peter's story because they are sidelining him. I bet he'll have maybe like 2 or 3 chapters in the next game, and Miles will have like 10, and then that will be it. That's your ending, which definitely isn't what people want. And of course, the internet is abuzz with this topic. People are debating it. People are arguing over it. Some people are saying things like, comments gonna get very interesting. People are all kind of in agreement that as long as this suit isn't in the game, it'll be fine. I don't know why, but Miles had such bad suits. I hated it. It was so annoying. It was such a struggle to find a half decent one. I do not like his, default poster boy suit, that's for sure. People are also pointing spoilers, I guess, for people who didn't get the game yet. I mean, it did only recently just come out, but I guess it is what it is. They figure over the past few weeks, all of the super fans have already played, and that's all they really care about. People are also pointing out South Park, the Panderverse. Pete will retire, but he'll be pulled out. That's my guess. Besides, it will probably be 3 Spider People and a Venom as playable characters. I don't think that they will have that much going on going forward. Like, we've had Venom. We'll probably get something with Venom again. I don't think that we're going to have 3 Spider People, Venom. Like, I don't think that we're going to have that much, but I do think that they are going to try to make it bigger and better, obviously, as, creatives do every time they go into, another installment in a franchise. But I just don't necessarily think that they are going to be able to top the first game, at least in my opinion. It was so good. The pacing was so well done. It just all around was a very well-balanced story. And unfortunately, them admitting that from the start their plan was always to sideline Peter, it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. People are saying things like Peter Parker is Spider-Man, Miles Morales is Miles Morales. Very true. Very true. I guess Peter Parker's too busy piping Mary Jane every day to save lives. It's like, yeah, what are they gonna do with those 2 characters? Like, are they going to do what some people are expecting, which is, oh, he was in retirement, but then he comes out of retirement? Is there going to be a large time gap? Of course, this game is still years and years away, so it's not like we have a lot of information on it, but there are a lot of questions and not a lot of answers. Like I said, this has definitely divided people. There are some here saying, as long as Peter's story ends in a good way, that's all that matters, and we just need justice for our boy, and that's fine. I don't know what these people are thinking supporting Insomniac. Clearly, they planned from the start to sideline Peter. Why would they give him a good story at this point? I mean, they've already pushed him to the side. Why would they do him justice when they have Miles, who is the next shiny, fancy Spider-Man? I obviously thought that the second game was a bit of a letdown. It is definitely not as good as the first title. I thought that they could have done a lot better in terms of story, and of course that they, the fact that they shoved the messaging into this really, ruined the experience for myself and a lot of people. But one of the writers, as you can see, has now confirmed that Miles is now the main Spider-Man in the Insomniac universe, and there are definitely a lot of people that are pissed off after hearing this. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed this and of course found it important and informative, make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.